Hey, it's your guy Tyrrell back with the interviews. PSG are off to a great start this season domestically, but they need to get the job done in Europe. They're battling with Liverpool and Napoli to try and get to the round of 16. Can they do it? How will they do it? Who is their key player? On this edition of the interviews, we're going to break down the role of Neymar because we feel he is key to PSG's success. So before we get into today's video, don't forget to give our video a thumbs up if you do enjoy it. The bell below does give you daily notifications regarding our organic, unfiltered soccer/footy analysis. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel. In today's video, we're going to look at PSG under Thomas Tuchel. They've played in a four-man backline. They've played in a three-man backline. Which system works best? Do they need Cavani? Are they better without him? And we're going to get down to the specifics of Neymar. He is the key player in this side, whether you like to admit it or not. When he plays well, he is the main difference maker and he is the key creative cog, and we'll get to that. But first, let's start with those lineups. We have them here in a 3-4-3. Sometimes it does form into more of a 3-4-1-2. That is the system they predominantly played this season. We've seen 4-2-3-1. We've seen 4-3-3. Here, Mbappe, Cavani, Neymar up front. Out in wider areas, Meunier and Bernat, obviously in those wider areas. And then in midfield, we've seen the combination Draxler. We've seen Di Maria. We've seen Verratti. We've seen Marquinhos in the midfield zone. Right now, we have Draxler and Verratti, and then at the back we've seen a bunch of combinations as well between Marquinhos, Thiago Silva, Tyrrell, and Saki. We've seen it all, but that is how they line up. And then in goalkeeper, we've seen Areola, we've seen Buffon. A lot of questions with this side. Tuchel trying to figure out which is his best starting 11, specifically if they can get out of the Champions League group, which they'll need to do by beating Liverpool. So first, let's get into how PSG line up, see which system works best for them, and then get into why Neymar is the key creative cog to this side. So when we go through the evolution of Thomas Tuchel's PSG, we have to look at the various systems they've played this season. We start with a 4-2-3-1. That didn't really work out for them. Why doesn't that really work out for them? Well, as you can see, the problem here is that with PSG, they have attack-minded fullbacks. They like to push up the pitch. And although they were able to play Di Maria down the left-hand side, the problem was, is Neymar going to mark your number 10? Is Cavani going to track back? Probably not. He does work hard, but his days of sacrificing for other stars, you have to think it's over after the Zlatan Ibrahimovic era. And Mbappe just doesn't do enough when he has to drop off into those deep positions and defend. That leaves you now with two midfielders. And what we've often seen is that it's been Rabiot and Verratti in the early stages, and they've proved that they're unable to protect the back four. Not enough defensive-minded tactical awareness, not tracking back, being overrun in midfield. They really lack a defensive presence. They miss Thiago Motta. They tried to bring Las Diarra to play that role. That hasn't worked out for them. And they just don't have anyone else to play there. They've played Draxler in midfield. They've played Di Maria in midfield as well. But again, if you look at it, you have the fullbacks forward. You have, whether it be Kimpembe, Thiago Silva, and Saki, Marquinhos. You have these center backs higher up the pitch, or even if they're a bit deeper, there's so much space in the channels to be exploited, and that is a big problem. We saw Napoli do that to them in their Champions League tie. We saw the good of PSG in that 4-2-3-1, where Neymar was able to get control of the match against Liverpool. But again, that stemmed from a lot of mistakes from Liverpool towards the end of the game, where you had Mbappe playing through the middle, you had Neymar dropping off or receiving the ball between the lines and playing in Mbappe, and that helped. But again, it just wasn't a long-term solution. You could go and you can argue that perhaps maybe a 4-3-3 is better, but when they do play a 4-3-3, what happens is that look how narrow this front three is. Mbappe and Neymar want to be in central roles. None of them want to really hang out wide. They do in transition, they do temporarily, but that is their base position. Too narrow, teams bog in, whether it be in two banks of four. Sometimes they drop a fifth man in there, and it's just too tight. And if you're not getting the support from the wider areas, it makes it much more difficult. And in this system, it's so much more easier to stop those players based on the fact that, look, bang, bang, and you still don't have the midfield support. We've seen Verratti sit in that deeper role. You have Draxler and you have Di Maria, two players that can really affect the game in advanced positions, but how advanced can they go? Can they control the midfield? Can they dictate the tempo of the game from deeper positions? That's not their role. They're not passers. Draxler able to dribble past you, able to provide that guile. Di Maria could slip out wide and provide crosses, and he can score goals from distance, as can Draxler. But again, it's not what you want for this team in the Champions League. It could work in Ligue 1. They've used it there. They've gotten results with various players missing, but that's not the system that they need. And again, it still leaves that space in between, which leaves us with Tuchel moving to the three-man backline. And this just seems like the ideal system for PSG based on the fact that they have attack-minded fullbacks that now convert into wing-backs. They have the exterior center backs that can move out into those positions to cover that space, and that's key. The thing here, though, is that in a two, sometimes we still haven't seen the best out of them in the Champions League, and that's based off the fact that, again, two-man midfield in the Champions League, you need your midfield to control the game. If they can't control, you need them to disrupt and prevent the other team from controlling the game. This PSG midfield can't do that. But when we've seen them in a 3-4-3, sometimes it just seems like it works. We've seen Neymar drop into deeper positions, and this is why he's the key man in this system. He's able to drop into these deeper positions. He's able to pick up the ball, break past players, provide passes in behind the defense. We saw it against Monaco recently, and although it was a Monaco side that is getting relegated, he's able to pick up that ball, play it over the top. We saw it on 2 occasions. Once he beat the 2 markers and played it in to Diaby, who was on the field. He was able to pull it back for Cavani, and then another time he dropped off a bit deeper, clipped the ball over the top for Diaby, who was able to pull it back again, and Cavani was able to get 2 goals. That is what Neymar is about in this system. He's able to either position himself in between the center backs. We saw that against Lille, where Lille dropped off into more of a 4-4-1-1. We have them here. He was able to find those reverse passes, and that was pivotal for PSG. He was playing them into Mbappe. One time he cut in from into a central position. Mbappe ran between the right center back and the right back. He's able to play that ball into him. Mbappe missed his chance. We saw another opportunity where you have Neymar picking up the ball, and what happens there is that we see Di Maria from midfield driving past one of the midfielders into the box. Neymar is able to squeeze that ball in between the right center back and the right back again for Di Maria to pick up the ball, but he was unable to finish his chances. But that is where they're really at their best. In that game, there was no Edson Cavani. What we do end up seeing here is the fact that he's able to pick up the ball. This is how they score the 2 goals. Verratti beats his marker in midfield, slides it to Neymar between the lines. Then you have Mbappe running between the center backs. Neymar is able to poke it between the right center back and the right back for Mbappe to instantly curl his effort past the keeper. We saw Mbappe holding off a defender. We saw a marker coming in. Neymar just easily pass it to Mbappe, get it back, bypass the marker, curl an effort off a defender into the net. That is what they're all about in the system. And if Neymar can get into those deeper positions and have runners running in beyond, like Cavani, like Mbappe, it seems to work. But again, from a defensive aspect, they end up defending in 7, and that's the big issue there. They can't defend in 7. They still struggle in midfield. The center backs still are prone to making mistakes, and that's a big problem for this PSG side. And if they make mistakes, then they have to ensure that the front players score goals, and that is the biggest issue. Neymar is a great dribbler, not as great dribbler as Lionel Messi. He's a great passer, not a better passer than Lionel Messi. We've seen Messi play in this system where he thrives off runners running in behind. We've seen throughout Messi's career, David Villa, Pedro, you had Henry, you had Eto'o, you had Neymar, you had Suarez making those runs in behind. That is kind of what Tuchel looks like he wants to replicate here. But the thing is that sometimes Neymar's dribbling, it leads to him losing the ball. Sometimes his pass is just too lackadaisical for a penetrative pass. And for some reason, just feels like a third attacker is a bit of a liability, but how can they drop Cavani? However, we've seen them in that 3-5-2 with Mbappe and with Neymar, and it just seems to work. We saw it against Napoli. For instance, you have Neymar dropping off, just a simple turn from Mbappe to spin off Raul Albiol. He's able to clip the ball over the top, and he fires a shot inches wide of the net. A great opportunity, but even in that system, with Napoli playing a 4-4-2 and trying to build up the back, you could press from the front, you have the wing backs looking to push forward out into the wider players, and you have that midfield advantage if you need to push those players forward to ensure that they're unable to play out of the back, and that prevents PSG from having to spend long periods without the ball and focusing on a defensive shape, which does help. We've also seen them lose a man against Lyon. They lose a man. They end up playing that game. They were playing that game in more of a 4-2-3-1. Cavani was sacrificed. They moved to a 4-3-2. And what happened there was you have Mbappe, you have Neymar. On the flip side, Lyon did lose a player as well, and they moved to a 4-2-3, which was a bit more of a risk. But again, you have Neymar dropping off. You have him on two separate occasions. First, playing between the right center back and the right back to free Mbappe on goal, wasn't able to score. You had another opportunity where he picked up the ball in that space, was able to slide the ball between the center backs, unable to round the keeper, denied again. But you're just seeing the combination. Neymar wants to drop deep, because if he doesn't drop deep, who's going to create the chances? That's the thing. It's not going to be Verratti. Di Maria and Draxler cannot be relied on to do that. The wingbacks, even if they are to push forward, or the fullbacks, are often blocked out of the game, and we haven't seen enough from Bernat and Meunier on a consistent basis to show that they are creative, they're reliable creative outlets. And Mbappe, more of a goal scorer, not creating chances. Same with Cavani, but is really lacking the service. So it's Neymar who has to take that role. We saw towards the end of that game, Mbappe did eventually score 4 goals. Great break down the left. Bernat slides it into him. The two center backs are caught high. It's Neymar poking that ball into Mbappe to run free on goal. When you think about it, you have the 3-4-3, you have Mbappe and you have Neymar, and you have Cavani trying to make runs in behind. Neymar needs to be at his best when he drops deep, because you have the two-man midfield, like I said. Very good chance they get overrun unless Tuchel gets a midfielder in January. You have the wingbacks that are going to want to push forward, which is great. They offer an attacking threat. Sure, Neymar could drift out wide. Sure, Mbappe can drift out wide and offer those combinations, but it does allow them to have that additional defensive presence. And at the moment, that seems like the biggest thing for this PSG side, because they go through spells in games where they just they're unable to really keep focused, and they're prone to making defensive mistakes. So if they have that extra body, that does help. But in the 3-4-3, they need to be more clinical up front, and the only player that can really help them out now is Neymar. He needs to be the all-rounder that we expect him to be. He offers the creativity with the goals, and if he's on fire, then there's a good chance this PSG side could go far in Europe. But let me know what you guys think. Do you think PSG can win the Champions League? Is there any other player who could step up instead of Neymar to help them get through this? And who could they buy in January to help them fix their tactical issues? Meet me in the comments below. Don't forget, I upload videos every day, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And that was your daily dose of the interviews.